a massive boulder crashes a truck.
Authorities say the passenger inside the vehicle miraculously avoids being crushed to death. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. secures 86 billion pesos from Australia. Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo urges China to stop harassing the Philippines. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim mulls to reopen the search for flight MH370. Red Bull's Max Verstappen dominates the F1 season opener in Bahrain. And LeBron James becomes the first in NBA player history to hit 40,000 career points.
Las Vegas, Nevada,
España,
Paris, France,
United Kingdom,
Washington, D.C.,
London Bureau, Papua New Guinea,
in New York,
Washington, D.C.
Mata ng Agila,
Mata ng Agila. Mata ng Agila International.
Trusted, connected, on point.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has joined the ASEAN-Australia Special Summit in Melbourne.
I welcome the opportunity for greater cooperation on climate change and energy transition. I am glad to see that we have made a good start here today with the agreements that we have come to between our private sector partners.
During the summit, the chief executive reiterated the Philippines' position on regional and international issues, as well as expresses thanks to the Australian government. The president has also inked 14 business agreements between Philippine and Australian investors at the Philippine Business Forum. The Philippines has secured deals on improving, building and funding OG, a Tier 3 data center, and the expansion of next-generation battery manufacturing in the country. Meanwhile, President Marcos also secured 86 billion pesos worth of investments from 12 business deals on the sidelines of his participation in the special summit. The president also held bilateral meetings with the prime ministers of Cambodia and New Zealand to further boost the nation's cooperation. President Marcos will also visit the Filipino community in Melbourne.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Manet have affirmed their commitment to bolstering tourism cooperation and rice trade relations. President Marcos and Prime Minister Hun convened during the special summit commemorating the 50th anniversary of the ASEAN-Australia dialogue relations in Melbourne. The president specifically emphasized the importance of revisiting and strengthening trade ties, particularly in agriculture, with a specific focus on rice. He said, and I quote, "We really need to look back and engage with in terms of trade in agriculture, rice specifically. We were preparing for this drought. It's now happening." Despite ongoing efforts to enhance palay production, President Marcos highlighted the necessity of rice imports to ensure the stability of the country's rice inventory. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Hun expressed eagerness for further discussions on connectivity and the facilitation of increased tourist exchanges between Cambodia and the Philippines. He emphasized the mutual benefits of strengthening ties in these areas.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Enrique Manalo urged China to stop harassing the Philippines, asserting that the Philippines wants to solve maritime disputes with China peacefully. Speaking on the sidelines of the ASEAN-Australian Summit in Melbourne, Manalo defended the government's actions to publicize China's harassments and the recent passage of Chinese warships near the Panatag Shoal or Bajo de Masinloc. He explained that if China would stop harassing the Philippines, there would not be any news to report. The Philippines has filed at least 485 note verbals against China from 2016 to July 5, 2023. This January, the Department of Foreign Affairs said it released a total of 4 note verbals to China. Most of the diplomatic notes refer to protests against illegal presence and actions of Chinese vessels in Philippine waters.
Highlighting or putting in the media incidents in the South China Sea is precisely part of our democracy, and it's merely trying to inform the people of what's going on. And some countries, or one country at least, has had some difficulty with that, but our simple explanation is if you would stop harassing us and perhaps performing other actions, there wouldn't be any news to report.
China claims almost the entire South China Sea through a 9-dashed line on its maps that includes even waters in the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Indonesia. But Manalo clarified that the Philippines is committed in ASEAN with China to negotiate and conclude the effective code of conduct. He underscored the importance of preventing escalation in the South China Sea.
In the event of any escalation, it's important that we seek to find ways to let's say, prevent such escalation by raising tensions in the area. But certainly, while the Philippines is committed to a peaceful resolution of disputes through diplomatic means or peaceful means, this will not be done at the expense of our national interest.
The Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, has deployed the BRP Gabriela Sang to the Benham Rise after reported presence of Chinese research vessels in the area. The BRP Gabriela Sang is one of the Philippines' biggest patrol vessels. The PCG said the BRP Gabriela Sang will sail for a 2-week mission, not just in the Benham Rise, but also in Batanes. The 84-meter vessel will patrol the vicinity waters to conduct maritime domain awareness and monitor local fishermen, signaling intensified PCG presence in northern Luzon. The PCG said that its air assets are also on standby for possible aerial surveillance. Meanwhile, a maritime security expert claimed that China's presence in Benham Rise could have something to do with an underwater survey to prepare for possible occupation of Taiwan. Tensions over maritime disputes in the West Philippine Sea continue. Last week, Ambassador Romualdez said that while the United States sees both the South China Sea issue and a potential Taiwan conflict as serious concerns, he insisted that the real flashpoint is the West Philippine Sea, given all of these skirmishes happening there. The China Embassy in the Philippines said Romualdez's remarks disregarded basic facts. It urged Romualdez to stop spreading the China threat theory. But on Sunday, the Philippine Embassy in Washington strongly rejected the criticism of China's embassy over the statement of Ambassador Jose Manuel Romualdez. The Philippine Embassy told China that Ambassador Romualdez is not spreading erroneous China threat and xenophobia remarks. It defended Romualdez, saying his statements have been consistent with the position expressed by the Philippine government's highest officials, particularly China's provocative actions against the Philippines, such as the use of lasers, water cannons, and other dangerous maneuvers in violation of international maritime regulations.
The Department of Agriculture, or DA, announced that the Philippines is taking proactive steps to support farmers and fishers grappling with the impacts of the El Niño phenomenon. DA Assistant Secretary Arnel de Mesa stated that a substantial credit and insurance assistance package will be extended to alleviate the challenges posed by the prolonged dry spell. A dedicated fund of 500 million pesos is earmarked for credit assistance, while an additional 1.8 billion pesos will be dispersed in insurance claims to provide financial relief to those directly affected by the El Niño phenomenon. Each affected farmer and fisherman will have access to credit assistance totaling at least 25,000 pesos, while insurance claims of up to 20,000 pesos each will be available. These measures complement existing support initiatives, including a 5,000 peso financial aid program for rice farmers and a 3,000 peso fuel subsidy for both farmers and fishermen.
Senate Minority Leader Aquilino Coco Pimentel and his fellow senators are hopeful that the Senate minority would be able to gather enough votes to block the proposed economic charter change. After a quick assessment through political mapping and one-on-one conversations with fellow senators expressing their opposition to resolution of both houses number 6, the charter change bids pending in the Senate. Pimentel said there is a possibility the minority bloc can muster 8 votes against RBH 6. Among the senators who have categorically been vocal against charter change so far are Senator Grace Poe, Pimentel, and Senator Cynthia Villar. According to the Senate Minority Leader, Senator Mark Villar may also side with his mother's position on the issue. Cynthia Villar had earlier said she finds the proposition to change the economic provisions in the present charter unnecessary, as it may lead to other more drastic changes to the Constitution. 18 votes, or at least 3/4 of the Senate, is required to be able to pass RBH 6 through the Senate. Villar also urges that even businessmen are opposed to the passing of the economic charter change provisions because it can lead to less stringent vetting practices and may open more avenues for corruption.
The Office of the Ombudsman has issued a preventive suspension against 140 officials and employees of the National Food Authority, or NFA, in light of revelations concerning the sale of large quantities of rice. Among those affected by the 6-month suspension without pay are NFA Administrator Roderico Bioco, Assistant Administrator John Robert Hermano, Regional Supervisors, and Warehouse Managers. During this period of suspension and ongoing investigations, Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tiu Laurel Jr. will assume temporary leadership and supervision of the authority. The case revolves around allegations that the NFA sold 75,000 sacks of rice valued at 93 million pesos to a trader at a significantly reduced rate of 25 pesos per kilogram, resulting in substantial financial losses for the government.
There will be mixed price adjustments on oil products set to take effect by tomorrow. The Department of Energy said that motorists are expected to pay 50 centavos per liter more for gasoline. Diesel per liter, on the other hand, will go down by 35 centavos. Kerosene price per liter will also decrease by 40 centavos. The Department of Energy Oil Management Bureau projected that the ceasefire in Gaza and the surge in U.S. crude inventory have contributed to the price cuts on diesel and kerosene. Meanwhile, the 6-month gasoline export ban on Russia has played a part in gasoline's price hike. Coming up, Malaysian Prime Minister provides a glimmer of hope for the families of Flight MH370. Haiti declares a state of emergency after a massive prison break. And chaos and starvation intensify in Gaza. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
We're in the sky. Kaya lumilipad na naman tayo.
Sino ba itong uupo ngayon sa ating iconic chairs?
Finally, nag-guess na rin ako dito. Just canceled everything for you.
Talaga, ay naku, nakakatuwa naman. Medyo kakaiba ang ating papasukin ngayong araw. The Goodwill Resort with the Goodwill Cast. Woo! Tinur niya tayo sa kanyang bagong buhay.
Mundo.
Tamang-tama, pinag-uusapan sila ng lahat ngayon. Tingnan ka!
Ayan na.
Ayan na. Alam mo talaga siya, no? Yes! Tatlong buwan! Kinasal ka na? Yes! Ngayon natin malalaman ang totoo. So now, let's spill the coffee.
Spill the coffee.
Yes. And we're here at Net25. Ito ang tahanan ng Corina Interviews.
Let's net together. Sa Net25. Sa Net25.
back to Mata ng Agila International. Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim says he would be happy to reopen the search for flight MH370 if compelling evidence emerged.
If there are compelling case evidence that need to be reopened, we will certainly be happy to reopen, because I don't think it's an issue of a tactical or technical issue. It is an issue of affecting lives of people, and whatever need to be done must be done.
It has been 10 years since the plane disappeared from radar on March 8, 2014, while flying from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing. It vanished in the Indian Ocean with 239 people on board. The reason for its disappearance has not been determined, even by aviation experts and investigators. Despite the largest search in aviation history, MH370 has never been found, and the operation was suspended in January 2017. About 500 relatives and their supporters gathered Sunday at a shopping center near Kuala Lumpur to remember the victims of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Malaysia's Minister of Transport told the grieving crowd that the government would discuss a no-find, no-fee proposal with marine exploration firm Ocean Infinity. Relatives of the MH370 victims said they are hopeful for the reopening of the search operations.
We are waiting for Ocean Infinity to provide suitable dates, and I will meet them anytime that they are ready to come to Malaysia.
The only way to solve this mystery is to find the plane. That's why it's important to search on. Don't let it remain a mystery. Then only we can put the puzzle pieces together and find out what happened. It can happen again.
Shehbaz Sharif has been appointed as the Prime Minister of Pakistan following a contentious vote marred by accusations of rigging and irregularities. During the assembly meeting on Sunday, Sharif secured victory over Omer Ayub, the nominee for the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf party led by former Prime Minister Imran Khan, who will now lead the opposition in parliament. Sharif is the younger brother of the three-time former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and previously held the office of Prime Minister from April 2022 to August 2023 following Khan's removal from power. The new government faces significant challenges, notably the revival of Pakistan's struggling economy and the mitigation of soaring inflation.
इतनी मेहनत करें कि 2030 को हम हदफ बना लें G20 की रुकनीयत का. Difficult but not impossible. Nothing is impossible in this world.
There appears to be no end in sight to a strike by junior doctors in South Korea. And the government has threatened tough action against the medics unless they return to work today, Monday. Bertie Parlade has the details.
The striking professionals have defied a February 29th government deadline for them to return to work or face legal action, including possible arrests or suspensions of their medical licenses. Nearly 10,000 South Korean junior doctors quit and stopped working to protest increases in medical school admissions. The government wants to see an additional 2,000 doctors graduate annually to combat shortages in an aging society. But the striking physicians say with more doctors hanging out a shingle, there will be increased competition, which could result in overtreatment of patients as practitioners try to make a living. And they say most of those extra graduates will try to work in higher paying specialties, which will do nothing to increase the number of family doctors. The work stoppage has taken a toll on hospitals, with crucial treatments and surgeries canceled, prompting the government to raise its public health alert to the highest level. The health ministry says around half of the surgeries scheduled at some major hospitals have been canceled since last week. Under South Korean law, doctors are restricted from striking. The government has requested police investigate people connected to the stoppage. Percival Parlade from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Hundreds of supporters of Alexei Navalny lined up to lay flowers to pay tribute to the deceased opposition leader on Sunday. The outpouring of affection is a significant show of support for the anti-corruption campaigner who died last month in an Arctic prison colony. Rosel Feria has the details.
For a third consecutive day, long Kiwis formed outside the Borisovo Cemetery in southern Moscow, where Navalny was buried on Friday. Thousands came to his funeral service, despite a warning from the Kremlin that mourners could be arrested if they are seen to break Moscow's strict anti-protest laws that ban unsanctioned public demonstrations and gatherings. Police maintained a presence at the cemetery on Sunday, though it was lighter than in previous days and there were no signs of mass arrests. Kiwis to enter the cemetery snaked alongside a major road for about half a kilometer. Mourners laid stacks of flowers on his grave. By Sunday afternoon, the pile was almost 2 meters high. Almost all of Russia's opposition figures have been jailed, have died, or fled abroad during Vladimir Putin's 24-year rule. Navalny's allies have accused the Kremlin of ordering him killed, and Western leaders have said Putin is responsible for his death. Putin has not commented publicly on the death of his most vocal critic. Rosel Feria for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Russia has reportedly intercepted a coordinated overnight operation by Ukrainian forces targeting the Crimean Peninsula. Russia's defense ministry confirmed that 38 unmanned aerial vehicles were intercepted and neutralized, with all hostile targets successfully eliminated by the country's air defense systems. No reports of damage or injuries on the ground have been received thus far, and the exact locations of the intercepted drones remain undisclosed. However, Russian authorities implemented temporary closures of sections of the highway leading to the Crimean Bridge, along with restrictions on the bridge itself throughout the night.
The Russian Defense Ministry has announced that Moscow test-fired its intercontinental ballistic missile on March 1. Moscow said that its Yars ICBM system was launched from the Plesets Cosmodrome. The Russian Defense Ministry claimed that the test warheads landed at the designated area at the Kura training ground on the Kamchatka Peninsula. Russia's military disclosed that Yars can reach more than 10,000 kilometers. Meanwhile, the United States think tank Institute for the Study of War accused Russian President Vladimir Putin and Russian officials of invoking nuclear threats, instilling fear in the Western audience. The U.S. think tank assessed that Russian nuclear use against Ukraine and beyond is unlikely to happen.
Police say they have arrested 4 men suspected of sexually assaulting a tourist with Brazilian and Spanish dual nationality in Jharkhand, India.
इसमें एसआईटी का गठन 2 किया गया है। एक जो अनुसंधान में कैसे केस डायरी लिखें, कैसे एविडेंस को कलेक्ट करें, इसके लिए टीम का गठन किया गया है। साथ ही साथ रांची से एफएसएल की टीम और सीआईटी की टीम भी आई। ज्वाइंट रूप से घटनास्थल का हम लोगों ने निरीक्षण किया और उसको वैज्ञानिक तरीके से अनुसंधान हो रहा है।
Initial investigation said the attack took place on Friday in Dumka, Jharkhand, where the couple had stopped their motorbike trip to camp the night in a tent. Over the weekend, the woman posted a video on their Instagram page saying 7 men raped her, adding that the suspects beat and threatened to kill her and her husband. She also said that the suspects robbed them. The identities of the men have not been disclosed yet. The alleged gang rape has led to outrage, but authorities vowed to continue searching for the remaining 3 suspects.
अच्छी तरीके से डायरी लिखकर इसको कड़ी से कड़ी सजा दिलाना है और दूसरा टीम बनाया गया है जो शेष बचे अभियुक्त हैं उसका लगातार सूचना का संकलन कर रहे हैं और रेड कर रहे हैं, छापेमारी कर रहे हैं। हम लोग जल्द ही जितने भी बचे हैं उन सभी अभियुक्तों को गिरफ्तारी कर लेंगे।
In Haiti, at least a dozen people have died as gang members attacked the main prison in its capital. The attack overnight Saturday triggered a breakout by several thousand inmates. Bernadette Regini reports.
The overnight attack came as part of a new spate of extreme violence in Haiti's capital of Port-au-Prince, while armed gangs who control much of the city have been wreaking havoc since Thursday. The gangs say they want to oust Prime Minister Ariel Henry, who has led the troubled Caribbean nation since the assassination of President Jovenel Moise in 2021. Pierre Esperance of the National Network for Defense of Human Rights says only around 100 of the national penitentiary's estimated 3,800 inmates are still inside the facility after the gang assault. An AFP reporter who visited the prison on Sunday observed around a dozen bodies outside it. The reporter says the prison gate was open and he noted there was hardly anyone left inside. Gangs attacked a second prison with more than 1,400 inmates. It's not known how many escaped. Haiti is the Western Hemisphere's poorest nation. It has been in turmoil for years. No elections have taken place since 2016. Bernadette Regini for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Around 170 individuals were reportedly executed in a series of attacks on 3 villages in northern Burkina Faso as religious extremists escalate violence within the country. Regional Prosecutor Ali Benjamin Coulibaly confirmed receiving information regarding the assaults on the villages of Comsilga, Nodin, and Soro in the Yatenga province, with an initial estimate of around 170 people being executed. Survivors recount harrowing experiences, highlighting that numerous women and young children were among those mercilessly targeted. Coulibaly's office has already initiated an investigation and issued a public appeal for any relevant information that could assist in shedding light on this harrowing event.
U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris meets on Monday today with Benny Gantz, a member of Israel's war cabinet. As the U.S. continues to push Israel for a ceasefire agreement, chaos and starvation are rampant in Gaza. It will be somewhat graphic, but there's some very compelling video. Thomas I. Likeness has that story.
World leaders sit in the comfort of offices and meeting rooms talking about how to end the fighting. U.S. President Joe Biden says efforts continue to get both sides to put down their arms.
We're trying to work out a deal between Israel and Hamas, the hostages being returned, and an immediate ceasefire in Gaza for at least the next 6 weeks.
And while this talk goes on, out on the front lines, there's no let-up in the devastation for the people of Gaza. Buildings continue to collapse from the ongoing shelling. The sound of desperate family members calling out their children's names as they search through the rubble, hoping to find their youngsters alive, echoes throughout these destroyed neighborhoods. Many times the results are tragic. Rania Abu Anza mourns over her 6-month-old twins pulled from the rubble, but they did not survive. As she holds their bodies, she cries, "Who will call me mother from now on?" Death comes to others not from the bombing, but from starvation. UN humanitarian spokesman Ramesh Rajasingham says hundreds of thousands of people are close to starving to death.
Here we are at the end of February with at least 576,000 people in Gaza, 1/4 of the population, one step away from famine, with 1 in 6 children under 2 years of age in northern Gaza suffering from acute malnutrition and wasting.
And even if people can get food, Maurizio Martina of the UN Food and Agriculture Organization says there's no safe way for people to quench their thirst.
Around 97% of the groundwater is reportedly unfit for human consumption.
On the weekend, American military planes dropped 66 pallets containing 38,000 ready-to-eat meals and water. A proverbial drop in the bucket, hardly enough to satiate the hunger in Gaza, which has seen 1.9 million of its people displaced. As the ceasefire talks drag on, these plaintive cries will continue to reverberate throughout Gaza. until both sides say enough and lay down their arms. Thomas I. Likeness from Atadang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A Washington-based think tank said there was a dramatic shift in China's maritime militia deployment to Mischief Reef or Panganiban Reef in 2023. In a report published on February 28 by the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, or AMTI, of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, it said that in July 2023, 183 Chinese vessels were spotted in the Panganiban Reef. The AMTI used satellite imagery to track the deployment of Chinese ships across the South China Sea, which includes the Panganiban Reef, Scarborough Shoal or the Bajo de Masinloc, and Second Thomas Shoal or the Ayungin Shoal. Experts on a 2016 Hague ruling stated that the said reefs, as well as the Recto or Reed Bank, are within the Philippines' exclusive economic zone. China, however, has repeatedly refused to honor the Hague ruling. The AMTI said an average of 195 Chinese militia vessels sized between 45 to 65 meters were observed across these locations last year. The report noted that there was an increase of 35% from AMTI's last observation of the Chinese militia over a 12-month period in 2021 to 2022. The reason for the increased presence of Chinese vessels in the Panganiban Reef from the peak of only 37 vessels in October 2021 remains unclear. The AMTI added that the largest consistent groupings of Chinese militia vessels were spotted at Hughes Reef and Whitson Reef. There was also a persistent militia presence near China's outpost at Gavin Reef, while smaller boat groups were observed at Titu and Iroquois Reefs. Last January, the Philippine Navy said that some 200 militia ships, 15 to 25 warships, and 10 to 15 Coast Guard ships from China were spotted around Panganiban Reef. However, Navy spokesperson for the West Philippine Sea, Commodore Roy Vincent Trinidad, clarified that the recent situation was not alarming. He also considered the situation as normal, explaining that Chinese vessels are deployed every now and then all over the South China Sea. Trinidad said it is difficult to give the exact number of Chinese vessels at an exact number of time, particularly China's maritime militia, since some of them are moving or anchored. OPEC Plus member nations agreed to extend their voluntary cuts to crude oil production through the second quarter. Saudi Arabia announced it would extend its voluntary cut of 1 million barrels per day through the end of June, leaving its output at around 9 million barrels per day. Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak said Russia will cut oil production and exports by an additional 471,000 barrels per day in the second quarter. Iraq decided to extend its 220,000 barrels per day output cut. United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Algeria, and Oman also announced its voluntary oil production cuts. Sources said the cuts would be reversed gradually based on market conditions. By reducing the global supply of oil, OPEC Plus is helping to stabilize the oil prices in the international crude market.
There are a lot of unhappy motorists in Cuba. Gasoline prices skyrocketed Friday as the country's government tries to stabilize the economy. Macy Membreri has the details.
Normally, lineups at these Cuban gas stations are long. But starting last Friday, the price of fuel shot up a whopping 500%. And fewer people can afford to fill up. Cuba imports most of its oil, buying it at world prices. It then sells it for loss, with the government subsidizing the difference. But the government is running out of money and can no longer afford to offset fuel costs. The sudden increase has caused anxiety for the country's citizens. Even at subsidized prices, gasoline seemed expensive to Cubans whose wages have not kept pace with inflation in recent years. The average wage is barely $16 a month. Macy Membreri for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
People in Argentina are facing a stark choice, whether to buy food or medicine. And many have decided to forego medication prescribed by their doctors. Pearl Rogacion has more details.
Medicine sales in the South American country dropped by 10 million units in January. And the Pharmacists Association says prescription medication accounted for more than 2/3 of that decline. Pharmacist Marcela Lopez says when people have to choose between eating and buying medicine, they choose to eat. Desperate patients also feel abandoned by the public health system. Many medicines have become unavailable since the government of President Javier Milei, who took office in December, ordered an audit as part of his quest to slash public spending. Since self-styled anarcho-capitalist Milei took over, medicine prices have risen 40% above inflation, itself at 254%. At the same time, poverty levels have reached nearly 60% in a country where the minimum salary is the equivalent of about $200. According to Pharmacists Association Director Ruben Sahem, there had been an agreement between laboratories and the pre-Milei government to keep prices low. That has since been abandoned. Pearl Rogacion for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Up next, the La Cumbre volcano erupts. Boulders crush a pair of trucks in Peru. And rescuers recover the driver of a truck dangling off a bridge. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break.
Open for business with Cesar Vallejos every Sunday, 9 p.m.
Let's get together. Sunday 25. Sunday 25.
Kamusta po kayong lahat? Ako po si Sergeant Harcy Muñoz ng Philippine Air Force. At ito po ang inyong mission ngayong Sabado, 11 a.m. Samahan niyo po kami tikman ang aming iba't ibang rice toppings. Dito lamang po sa Lutong Gaza at Net 25.
Let's get together. Sunday 25. Sunday 25.
Nearly 3,000 out-of-control forest fires have been registered in the Brazilian Amazon just this February. This is the highest for any February since records began in 1999. Experts blame climate change as the more than likely culprit. Crisan Fragata reports.
Roraima is home to the Yanomami Indigenous Reserve in the north of the Amazon rainforest. In February this year, it was hardest hit by fires. A Boa Vista firefighter says as the drought worsened, the situation went out of control. Boa Vista is the main city in Brazil's northernmost state of Roraima, where the local river is drying up. Blamed on climate change, the almost 3,000 forest fires registered in the Brazilian Amazon this month is the most for any February since records began in 1999. Brazil's INPE Space Research Institute says its satellites had picked up 2,940 fires so far in February. That is 67% more than the previous high of 1,761 recorded in February 2007. This number is 4 times more than in the same month last year. Scientific Director of the IPAM Amazonia Research Institute, Annie Alencar, says the climate factor certainly plays a fundamental role in this anomaly. Alencar says we have seen the Earth break temperature records. Every year, she says, is the hottest year, and this has a synergy with climate phenomena such as droughts. Alencar adds that such environmental stress generates all the necessary conditions for each fire to become a large fire. She says some of the blazes may have been the result of forest clearing for agriculture. Kristen Fragata for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Meanwhile, a volcano on an uninhabited island of Ecuador's Galapagos archipelago has come to life. Ecuador's government says the La Cumbre volcano has started to erupt. Kimi Oria has the details.
This is a view of the eruption on the island of Fernandina, which is about 1,000 kilometers off the coast of Ecuador. The mountain is spewing gas and lava. Authorities say there is no immediate danger. They add for now, the eruptions won't have any impact on tourism to the islands. But biologists worry the eruption may threaten an array of unusual animal species. The Galapagos Islands have a unique ecosystem. It is home to diverse species which are not found anywhere else on Earth. La Cumbre has erupted 3 times since 2017. The mountain last blew its top in 2020. Kimi Oria from Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
A huge fire has swept a Grand Prairie junkyard in Texas as a thick plume of smoke rises into the air. Aerial footage showed firefighters battled with the heat to contain the blaze. Authorities confirmed no reports of injuries. Meanwhile, fire officials have launched an investigation into the cause of the fire.
In Peru, a massive boulder has crushed a truck under the weight of debris. Initial reports suggested that 2 vehicles were affected by the impact of the rockfall, with 1 truck being completely flattened. Authorities said that no fatalities were reported in the incident. Local officials have launched an investigation to determine the cause of the rockfall. Reports said that the area was known for its rugged terrain, which has been prone to landslides, mainly during the rainy season. This is to develop preventive measures against similar incidents in the future.
Rescuers have saved a driver from a trailer truck dangling off a bridge over the Ohio River. Authorities said that the truck was struck by a vehicle that had crossed into opposing traffic. Rescuers successfully pulled the driver into safety, but 3 other cars were involved in the incident. Louisville Metro Police said that 2 people were rushed to the hospital after sustaining major injuries. Police disclosed that the crash occurred when the southbound vehicle hit a stalled car and crossed into northbound traffic, hitting the truck and causing it to veer off.
Authorities are in pursuit of multiple suspects after a 15-year-old was injured in a shooting incident that unfolded when police engaged in gunfire with what they described as a disruptive crowd numbering up to 600 individuals. The incident occurred Saturday evening on a service road adjacent to the Six Flags Over Georgia amusement park in suburban Atlanta. Local law enforcement had been summoned to the park earlier to assist in dispersing a large and disorderly crowd, estimated at 500 to 600 people, who were reportedly engaged in altercations and disturbances within the park. Upon arrival, gunfire erupted from multiple sources, resulting in damage to an unoccupied police patrol vehicle. Subsequently, a pursuit ensued, with one officer discharging their firearm, ultimately striking a minor. The injured teen was swiftly transported to a nearby medical facility, where they remain in critical condition as of Sunday, with no further updates provided on their status.
Hundreds of people have been evicted from an illegal gold mine at Venezuela's Galapagos forest. The military dismantled structures around the illegal mine, which collapsed last month, killing 16 people. Julian Bukayan reports.
Soldiers moved out more than 1,200 people from the illegal mine in the Bolivar state. Authorities say 131 of them are children. The region is rich in gold, diamonds, and other minerals. Although much of it is extracted by state mines, illegal operations flourish in the region. Activists denounce ecocide in the area and the exploitation of children who work long hours without protection. Authorities say illegal miners chop down and burn trees, contaminate water, and engage in underground drilling that is damaging to the environment and harmful to indigenous communities. Last July, President Nicolas Maduro ordered the deployment of armed forces to counter a scourge that he says is destroying the Amazon of South America and Venezuela. Since then, some 14,000 illegal miners have been evicted from the Amazon state, where vast areas have been devastated by mining. Rights activists have denounced excessive use of force during evictions of illegal mines, where foreigners from Colombia, Brazil, and Ecuador also operate. Julian Bukayan from Tanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
SpaceX has successfully launched NASA's Crew 8 into space at Kennedy Space Center. NASA's crewed flight was aboard SpaceX's brand new Falcon 9 rocket, sending 4 astronauts to the International Space Station. The U.S. Space Agency disclosed that the 9th crewed launch is composed of astronauts Matthew Dominic, Michael Barrett, Gina Epps, and Russian cosmonaut Alexander Grebenkin on a 6-month mission to ISS. The launch has been delayed for days as the initial schedule is back from February 22 due to weather woes. Meanwhile, after a week of Crew 8's arrival to the ISS, NASA's Crew 7 will return to Earth.
Coming right up, Max Verstappen strikes first in F1 season opener. LeBron James makes history once again. And Liza Soberano dazzles at the 2024 Anime Awards. Catch more news in sports and entertainment when we return.
Sobrang mahiyain ako, pero parang ang daming nabigay sa akin na Ronnie para lumabas ako sa Pero, nagharana ka rin ba?
Actually, siya humarana sa. Kasi siya singer eh. Kumanda ka na, Ara.
May balimbring armisi din eh. Nga kasi ang alam ko lang ganito po eh. Okay?
So, 1. Sige, 1. Ay! Train anytime, anywhere. And always be ready.
Hello everyone! Ako po si Maris.
Ako po si Ronnie.
And we are the Rickets. Abangan niyo po kami sa magandang araw this Saturday at 3 p.m. Dito lang po sa
Net 25!
Ano ba yan? Saan ang kalaban? Saan ang kalaban? Saan ang kalaban?
Wala pa ba? Nag-iimbita kami. Abangan nyo kami, ha?
Dito sa Magandang Araw.
Yeah.
Let's get together. Sunday 25. Sunday 25.
The Bureau of Immigration reminded underage solo travelers headed for Taylor Swift's Eras Tour concert in Singapore that they needed to secure a clearance from the Department of Social Welfare and Development. It said that a travel clearance and parental consent were required for travelers under 18 who would fly out alone or with a person who was not their parent. The agency said they are expecting an increase in travelers during the first week of March during the Taylor Swift concert period. The March 2 to 9 Singapore concerts were the only Asian stop for Taylor's Eras Tour.
Asia's wealthiest man has thrown a $152 million party to celebrate his son's engagement. The guest list for the pre-wedding shindig included fellow billionaires, heads of state, and stars from Hollywood and Bollywood. Mark Castillo tells us more.
Here are some pictures of people on the guest list. The three-day bash began Friday in the small West Indian city that is home to industrialist Mukesh Amani. The affair is in advance of Asia's wealthiest man's 28-year-old son, Anand's wedding this summer. Anand's fiancée, Radhika Merchant, is the daughter of wealthy pharmaceutical moguls. Some 1,200 people have been invited. One of the activities on Saturday included a trip to an animal rescue center housing exotic animals. The facility is a pet project of Anand's. It was built in his family's hometown, where the weekend party is taking place. Forbes magazine ranks Mukesh Amani as the world's 10th richest man. His fortune is estimated at more than $116 billion. Mark Castillo from Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
King Harald of Norway returned home from Malaysia on Sunday after spending several days in hospital. He is the oldest reigning monarch in Europe at 87 years old. He contracted an infection while on a trip to the island of Langkawi, Malaysia. But the royal palace said the king is recovering and will be on sick leave for 2 weeks. The king would be hospitalized in Oslo for further checkups. The palace also confirmed that King Harald had been fitted with a temporary pacemaker.
Prince William and Princess Anne will take over the reins from Queen Camilla as she is set to take a quick break after completing 13 official royal engagements. Sources say the Queen will return to her royal duties on March 11. Meanwhile, King Charles is set to make his first foreign trip to Australia later this year. Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the King's visit will be the first from a reigning monarch since 2011. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez give Red Bull a much-needed 1-2 to open the F1 season. Vin Pasqua has the score.
So Sainz finding himself behind his teammate as he rejoins. Here we go. That's a late lunge and a half. My word, from downtown to take the place of Carlos Sainz.
Max Verstappen picks up from where he left off in 2023 with a commanding Bahrain Grand Prix victory, leading Formula One teammate Sergio Perez home for a Red Bull 1-2. The reigning Little Resistance only having to contend against Charles Leclerc rounding the first corner as the Ferrari driver attempted to make a pass around the outside, but the Red Bull driver held the racing line and managed to take his opening stint as far as the end of lap 17 as he became the last driver to pit, but was far enough ahead of the Mexican Sergio Perez. This group Perez faced challenges from Russell. Lewis Hamilton could not enjoy the same heroics as Russell early on as he was largely stuck in lockstep behind Fernando Alonso in the early stages. Lewis Hamilton in the second Mercedes. McLaren's Oscar Piastri took 8th with the Aston Martins of Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll completing the points finishers in 9th and 10th. On next week's race at Saudi Arabia, things are sure to heat up in Jeddah as the racers are prepared to kick things up another gear. Reporting for Sports, Vin Pasqua for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The NBA's all-time leading scorer made history, prompting loud cheers from the fans at Crypto.com Arena. Los Angeles Lakers superstar LeBron James has become the first player in NBA history to score 40,000 career points, accomplishing the milestone on Saturday during the team's 124-114 loss at home against the Denver Nuggets. The Lakers played a video tribute for James to honor the milestone during timeout. The 39-year-old has been in uncharted territory since surpassing Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's 38,387 points to become the NBA's all-time leading scorer last season. The four-time NBA champion entered the night 9 points shy of the 40,000 mark, but James finished the game with 26 points and 9 assists for a career total of 40,017 points, while also extending his NBA record double-digit scoring streak to 1,205 games dating back to January 2007. Playing in his 21st season, James is averaging 25.3 points, 7.9 assists, and 7.1 rebounds per game this season, becoming the first player in league history to be named to 20 NBA All-Star teams. Earlier this season, James helped lead the Lakers to the inaugural NBA in-season tournament championship title while earning tournament MVP honors.
To take a shot of this, James against Porter, drives, spins, gets inside. It's good. It's 40,000 for LeBron James.
Liza Soberano absolutely slayed during the 2024 Crunchyroll Anime Awards held in the heart of Tokyo. The multi-talented Lisa Frankenstein actress not only graced the event with her stunning presence, but also took the stage as the presenter for the coveted Best Anime Song category. Liza turned heads and stole hearts, dressed in a dazzling orange sequined masterpiece by David Koma, paired with silver Jimmy Choo pumps, adding an extra touch of glam to her already radiant look. She showered applause on all the deserving winners of the Anime Awards 2024, spreading good vibes and congratulatory messages. In her Instagram post, Liza made sure to extend her heartfelt gratitude to Crunchyroll for the incredible opportunity to be part of such a momentous occasion. And to help you get through this week, here's a quote from American singer-songwriter Taylor Swift. No matter what happens in life, be good to people. Being good to people is a wonderful legacy to leave behind.
And sometimes I think we are so clouded with thoughts thinking about fulfilling societal standards, when in reality, what's really important is being kind to the people around. That's what you'll be remembered for.
So true. And this coming from Taylor Swift, like I said, I may not be crazy about her music, but I love her energy and I am a fan of her advocacies. Maybe if I got to know her a little bit better, I'll be a fan of her too as just a person.
Yes, I think the longevity of her career as well is stemmed from her kindness to other people.
So before we say goodnight, those of you who are still on the road at this moment, please don't fail to tune in to Eagle FM 95.5.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. You can also catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point. You can. Thank you for choosing Mata ng Agila International as your trusted news source, keeping you connected to the world and on point with stories from around the globe. Follow, like, and subscribe to @Net25 TV.